Holy shit, what the hell did I just watch? I cannot believe I didn't watch this when it came out back in 2022, but here I am talking about Cyberpunk Edgerunners. Wow, this was an amazing freaking show. A show that I am honestly surprised I didn't even get a chance to watch it all. The fact that this came out in the summer 2022 season is still mind boggling to me because I remember when this show first came out, a lot of people recommended me to check this show out, watch it. This is going to get you to talk about Studio Trigger in a really good, positive manner. And honestly, I didn't really believe in the Forsayers and everyone online about it, but after finally giving the show a shot and telling everyone back then that I promised I was going to give the show a shot, I watched this show, binged the hell out of every all 10 episodes, and my God, this is probably undoubtedly, in my opinion, within the top 10 best animes of 2022, hands down. It even has the potential to be like the best anime of the decade right now because there's so much I want to unpack with this show that if you haven't heard about Cyberpunk Edgerunners, please watch it first and foremost. But if you haven't, I will try to break down my thoughts and feelings and give an overall review of how I feel about the show. So, without further ado, let's get into Cyberpunk Edge Runners. So, once again, Cyberpunk Edgerunners. This was the anime that came out back in 2022 within Studio Trigger themselves. And if you know Studio Trigger, you know their reputation. Studio Trigger is pretty well infamous at this point. And around this time period in the summer 2022, we have shows like Classroom Delete Season 2, Call of the Night, Overlord Season 4, the second season of Talk Mouse coming out, and even the new season Made in Abyss airing around this time period. And of course, within these big shows that are pretty big, pretty common, everyone was like really hyped about, there was Cyberpunk Edgerunners, which was apparently number one in the ONA type of like most highly anticipated animes to come out of summer 2022. And I'm not gonna lie when I say this, that for a while, when this show was first announced, when it was introduced, everyone and I think we can all agree, this this franchise already had a pretty bad sour taste in everybody's mouth. Because for one, Cyberpunk Edgerunners was unfortunately being loosely tied into Cyberpunk 2077, the video game, which I think this has been spilled already as to what happened to this video game. When this first came out, this was a massive disappointment. The game came out with some massive bugs and glitches galore to the point that this was like one of the biggest messes to come out of that year when it came out prior. And it's not surprising as to why. I mean, you can see the clips and the bunch of memes surrounding like all the crazy glitches and all the crazy nonstop gameplay that came about. And ultimately, the story just never really held up to its full potential. And then, of course, when we finally got an announcement that Cyberpunk Edgerunners would get an anime adaptation based on this video game, a lot of people were like, nah, there's no way. There's no shot that's going to be really good. And of course, another reason why the show was also looked upon was that it was under Studio Trigger. And if you know Studio Trigger and their reputation prior to Cyberpunk Edgerunners was pretty abysmal, to say the least. After all, this is the same studio that came out the gate swinging with the likes of Inferno Cop and, of course, how can we forget, Kill la Kill, which was really what put Studio Trigger on the map in the first place. One of the biggest, most talked about shows in mainstream anime to this day. And again, their catalog has spanned to like a lot of great animation shows that I could gush over grains about from the fact that we have the Studio Trigger stamp of approval. Again, from Kill la Kill to Little Witch Academia to Ultra Patrol Luluko or Space Patrol Luluko, which is one of the most underrated animes to come out of 2016. But what really got people turned off by Studio Trigger, and me included, was a pretty big and infamous show that I'm pretty sure everyone knows about, and that's Darling in the Fran. A show that came out in 2018 that when this first came out, I was entirely, truly disappointed by. Truly, honestly. Like, the first half was fine, it was strong, but the second half is when it really fell apart in all deaf ears. And as a result, this was obviously not Studio Trigger's fault entirely. After all, the animation for the show was really great, it was amazing. But because of the massive mixed backlash and negative reactions that this show garnered, and Studio Trigger was a part of this whole thing, it kind of was fell into deaf ears that this is all Studio Trigger's fault and that they were the ones that kind of ruined their reputation as a result. And that wasn't really true. But because of how much backlash this show got back in 2018, um, it seemed like Studio Trigger reputation was coming to a pretty dismal performance, and albeit it wasn't really a good one to say the least. Because past that point during the Fran, they would then drop like shows between here and Cyberpunk Edgerunners to like pretty mixed performance, where you have SSS Gridman, which was a pretty good attempt at like a mecha anime from what I was told, but it didn't like leave people impressed, unfortunately. There's also the infamous Promare, which I remember when the show came out back in 2019, and I too wasn't really crazy about it. I didn't bother watching the movie, but essentially this movie did at least give a glimmer of hope that hey, Studio Trigger is gonna be making a comeback because it felt a little Gurren Lagann esque kind of type of anime. And then there's B&A, which came out back in 2020, which unfortunately, despite the fact that this show had a lot of great things going for it, it fell on the wayside because this was also the same year that it came out during the pandemic era. And that, in a nutshell, was essentially where Studio Trigger was up until that point with all their big shows and shows they came out with. But something clicked in 2022 with Cyberpunk Edgerunners. And believe it when I say this, after watching all 10 episodes of Edgerunners, I feel like, yeah, Studio Trigger is back, baby. They are fucking back. They are locked and loaded and ready to go. The fact that we have a second season of this show coming soon, it's currently in production right now, leaves a lot of hope. And it also reflects on their other animes that have come out past this point. We have the amazing Dungeon Meshi, which came out last year, which did super, super well, was really popular, still is being talked about to this day. And currently, they're even dropped a new season of Pantene Starking with Garter Belt, which is also like kicking ass, taking names, and I'm absolutely enjoying the hell out of it. So with Cyberpunk Edgerunners, I went into the show with like full high expectations because hey, how can they take a really shitty video game and make it to its own anime world? And boy howdy, they fucking did it. So, Cyberpunk Edgerunners takes place and mainly focuses on our main character, David Martinez, a dude who essentially is growing up in like the poor slums of Night City, and together with David and his mother Gloria, both essentially showcase like the struggles and the hardships of living in like the poor lifestyles of Night City, and you pretty much get the glimpse of like what you're expected, what you're dealing with within the first episode alone. The first episode immediately showcases just throwing David in like the worst situation possible and just already like spearheading and tumbling down this momentum of like here's David, he's like living in this poor neighborhood and now something dramatic is going to change instantly to where he loses like again it starts off to where he loses his mother in a horrible car accident to the point that he's now broke. He's potentially going to be dropping out of his academy that he was trying to strive for to being in the place they want to be. um, and it felt like David's life was going to go into the shitter until he stumbled across a Sanavistan cyberware, which essentially is gives him like superhuman powers, basically superhuman speed, and essentially takes advantage of that and is able to change the course of history as you know it, from where he's able to beat up the bullies that tormented him to the point that he was able to essentially do and take over the mantle of what his mother at the time was doing. And throughout this whole journey, we are then introduced to Lucy, who Lucy essentially comes off as like really mysterious, unknowing, and basically Lucy offers David a chance to change his path to go into a more positive angle in a way. And Lucy introduces David into the world of the Edge Runners, a group of bandits who essentially take like private information from like the military and like cyber warfare kind of shit, and it they dive into it so well that I'm just left flabbergasted. Like holy shit, I really am invested into the world at large and what's to come, and they do that so well within the show. Again, the animation is not only like Studio Trigger stamp of approval esque, but again, I can't get enough of the animation. The animation is so goddamn beautiful. The characters are so out there, charismatic, and just over the top. There are even moments where I felt like I was watching like the first season of Psycho Pass to an extent. But with every 10 episode esque series, this show pulls out nonstop, no filter, no bullshit. Because this show has a pretty big, I think, in my opinion, a pretty big reputation of where they kill off a lot of main characters in this show. And with each character's death, it actually takes a toll on the remaining characters that are happening throughout the show. And it's definitely not there for the sake of like a shock value and to act dread and shit like it is with what happened with a comic got killed, unfortunately. No. Cyberpunk Edgerunners does it in such an amazing, amazing way to where you're like, holy shit just got real. And nothing can be said more sooner than when Rebecca, one of Rebecca's brother, unfortunately gets axed immediately within the third episode, and you're just wondering like, holy shit, what the fuck just happened? Like we got to know this guy like so well. Like, you didn't think he was gonna die. You think he was gonna make it to the end game, but no, boom, just dead from a unmanned psychotic cyborg that goes rogue and just kills them right off the blue with no hesitation, no remorse, nothing. And they do it so well. And each character's death leaves David more tattered, more shattered, less human. And throughout the show, you see David go from like this simple human with like a little bit of some enhancements here and there on his body, and then of course the Santa Vista that he started off with, to where now he is a former fucking shell of himself, and his body is just so unrecognizable from what you first see him in this poster alone. Like David goes through so much of a transformation. It is mind-boggling. And nothing's much more sadder than episode 5 with the final stab with Maine and his background to why he was part of the Edge Runners and what made him the big hunk of metal that he is. It is his story, main story is so goddamn strong. It is so compelling that when his stuff finally comes in the way that he goes out like a fucking badass, but also in a way like psychotic, it's so fucking sad. It really is sad. It let me after watching that fifth episode, I was left there paused like, holy shit, like what in the world? Like I had to pause for like a good couple of minutes to even press forward to the next set of episodes. That's how crazy Maine's death was. And not just Maine's death, but it also just piled on to the other characters and everything at stake there. And make no mistake, like every character's death just somehow keeps piling on and on and on with each passing episode. And then it leads to like this big climactic moment where it involves like two of like the edge runners versus the corporations itself, and they're trying to take down like the Araska corporation um, for like cybernetic enhancements and future stuff. Again, it's hard for me to really describe the premise of where the show goes from there because I'm just like in all amazement of like what's happening in the show all the way through. Again, sorry if I'm talking gibberish right now, but I just can't get over how good they really portray the show really well. The emotions of every character is portrayed so well that like when you first meet David, he's like high, uppity, giddy, go lucky kind of guy. And then at the end, you just see him as like a super empty shell of himself, but he maintains his fucking cool and and the last bits of humanity he had left up until the very fucking end, and that's fucking badass. And Lucy, being that like she started off as like this character that we never knew about, but she has some affiliations with the Araska company, and her dream is to simply go to the moon, and she's able to more or less achieve that one way or another is saying something. And then, of course, we get like a crazy fucking cameo at the very end with Adam Smasher, which holy fuck, like it's kind of it's weird that like when you see this guy again, you know that like damn shit's gonna happen fast, real quick, and like the fact that we saw Adam Smasher from the first episode and then the final episode really showcased like wow, this is like a 180 moment kind of thing. Again, I could go on about like how amazing this show is, man. This was entertainingly amazing. This was undoubtedly one of the best shows come out. The voice acting is incredible. The animation is amazing. The music that plays in this show is so appropriate. in certain scenes where it gets intense, or if it gets serious, or if it gets emotional. And I absolutely love that. And it makes me want to, like, unironically want to go and play Cyberpunk 2077, the video game, to actually explore more about the world at large. Because holy moly, this was a special type of anime that Studio Trigger really cooked up when this came out in 2022, and it's a damn shame I didn't watch it when it first came out. But yeah, Cyberpunk Edgerunners, I have like little to no complaints about, honestly. The only few complaints I have really are just like the few characters in here that, in my opinion, probably don't make much of an impact. They don't really get much of the ball rolling, or at least until the very end, we get to see them shine. But by then, it's kind of like too fast, too late, given how short this series is. And again, I think we can leave it at that. Again, Cyberpunk Edge Runners is absolutely amazing. I'm blown away by this show. I really am. Right now, honestly, I would give it like a strong 8 to a light 9, but it's really good. It's super fucking good. This was a badass, kick ass anime, and I now see why this was a show that not only was recommended to me so many times over the years, but this was the show that really put Studio Trigger truly back on the map at this point. And I can see that ever since then, it's been getting better and better from there on out. And yeah, just wanted to talk about and gush over grannies over this show because, oh my god, I love this show. It really is amazing. So yeah, that's really about it. I'll see you on the next one later.